Have you felt a shift lately when you're online? Maybe a tightening, a sense that things are, changing fundamentally.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
It's palpable, isn't it?
Yeah.
What we're really witnessing is, well, a kind of perfect storm. A whole convergence of legislative action, financial pressure, new technologies. It all seemed to hit this intense peak around, say, July 2025.
Right.
And it's fundamentally altering the internet as we knew it.
Right.
And this isn't just, abstract policy debates happening somewhere else. This is about how you interact, how you create, how you share online every single day.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take that stack of sources you give us and really pull out the most important nuggets, the key insights. Today we are plunging headfirst into a topic that, well, it touches everyone with an internet connection, doesn't it? The rapidly evolving and frankly increasingly intricate landscape of digital control, censorship, and surveillance. Our mission today, to unpack this really complex web. We want to show you how changes, often initially framed as, protecting children, always a starting point. Right. How those changes are actually creating an unprecedented era of digital control that goes way beyond those stated aims. We'll be pulling insights from multiple sources, making sure you walk away truly well-informed.
In our deep dives today, it's really built on some dense, but I have to say incredibly illuminating source material we're drawing from expert analyses provided by two really valuable resources. Now, if your work, or maybe just your personal interest, demands a deep understanding of global privacy laws, information security frameworks, maybe for professional compliance, risk management, or just staying ahead, you'll definitely want to explore www.compliancehub.wiki. They are, frankly, an indispensable resource for anyone in the CISO, CCO, or DPO roles navigating this constantly shifting regulatory sea.
Absolutely. And for anyone just grappling with their own personal digital privacy, the rising threats of identity theft, or maybe just trying to understand how Web3 adoption impacts your life. Our other key source material comes from www.myprivacy.blog. They're really dedicated to helping you stay a step ahead of privacy concerns, both at the office and, crucially, at home. We're really grateful for their support. It makes deep dives like this, tackling these complex issues, possible.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So many of these sweeping changes we're seeing, both here in the U.S. and, well, globally, they're being framed under that banner of child online safety. And look, it's a crucial concern, right? We all share it. Protecting kids online.
Absolutely. No one disputes the goal.
The way these protections are being implemented and let's say, the broader ripple effects, that's where it gets really complex. Precisely. And to understand where we are now, you really have to go back to a foundational piece. Specifically, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COBE-PI, here in the U.S. Now, this piece of legislation, it was actually enacted by Congress way back in 2000, a very different internet era.
Right, ancient history in tech terms.
Exactly, and its primary aim was sort of twofold. First, addressing children's access to obscene or harmful content. And second, critically, regulating how online operators collect personal information from children under 13.
Okay, so 2000. How has something that old kept up? I mean, the internet's exploded since then. Does it apply to every single website now, or just certain types?
No, not every website. COPIO specifically targets operators of websites or online services that are directed at children under 13. Or, and this is key, those operators who have actual knowledge that they are collecting personal info online from a child under 13.
Actual knowledge, okay.
Right. And the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, they enforce COPAPER. They issued the initial rules back in 2001, but then updated them significantly in 2011. That update was crucial to reflect the evolving digital landscape. Rise of social media, mobile apps, all that stuff. It shows how an older act gets stretched, you could say, to fit new realities.
And what about places like schools, libraries? They provide internet access to kids all the time. How does COPE apply there?
Good question. They are definitely under COPA's umbrella, especially if they want to receive those critical E-rate program discounts.
Right, the funding for internet access.
Exactly. To get that funding, schools and libraries have to certify they have an internet safety policy. And this policy isn't just, a piece of paper. It must include technology protection measures, essentially filters or blocks.
To stop kids seeing certain things.
Right. To prevent access to obscene content, child pornography, or anything deemed harmful to minors, specifically on computers that kids can access. And interestingly, before adopting a policy like that, they're required to give public notice and hold at least one public hearing. Community input is built in.
That sounds pretty thorough for schools. But, filtering sites, it feels like just one part of the equation. Are there more requirements beyond just blocking?
Oh, yes. There are two significant additional requirements for schools, thanks to the Protecting Children in the 21st Century Act, which is kind of built on COPEBA. First, their safety policies have to explicitly include provisions for monitoring the online activities of minors. Yes. And second, they must provide education to minors about appropriate online behavior. And this isn't just, be nice online. It covers crucial stuff. Safe interaction on social networks, how to behave in chat rooms, and cyberbullying awareness, recognizing it, responding, reporting. Plus, the policies need to cover access to inappropriate material, safety in email and chats, preventing hacking, and, crucially, preventing unauthorized disclosure of kids' personal info. It's quite extensive.
Wow. Okay, so it's much more than just content blocking. It's creating this whole managed online environment for kids. Are there any loopholes? Or does it, say, force schools to track everything kids do online?
Important distinctions there. COPE doesn't apply if schools and libraries only get discounts for basic telecommunication service, so there's a scope limit, and crucially does not require the tracking of internet use, either by minors or adults. The aim is protection, not constant surveillance of browsing history. There's also a provision allowing an authorized adult, like a teacher or librarian, to disable the filters for, say, bona fide research. It acknowledges adults need access sometimes. So yeah, COPE is critical, foundational even, but it's really just the first step in what becomes a much larger legislative push in the U.S., sort of setting a precedent. And beyond COPA, the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee, wow, they've been incredibly active. They even summoned tech CEOs, Discord, Meta, Snap, TikTok, X, you name it, hauled them in to talk about child safety on their platforms.
Right, I remember those hearings. Intense.
Very. And it signals this broader, maybe more aggressive approach to online protection. Some proposals really push the boundaries, and right at the forefront of that push is the Kids Online Safety Act, KOSA S1409.
Ah, yes, KOSA. That's been making major headlines. What's the core idea behind it, and why is it so controversial? It seems to have both strong supporters and fierce opponents.
It does. KOSA is really designed to tackle those very real anxieties about kids growing up glued to smartphones and social media. It was reintroduced in Congress in May 2025. Its main goal is to establish a duty of care for platforms.
Duty of care, meaning?
Meaning platforms would be required to prevent various harms. And here's where it gets, really controversial. Because those harms are largely undefined in the bill. That vagueness rings alarm bells for a lot of people.
Undefined harms. Yeah, I can see how that would be a problem.
Definitely. The bill would also mandate age verification across platforms accessible to minors. Huge technical, huge privacy challenge there. And maybe most significantly, it gives state attorneys general the power to sue platforms over their content decisions.
Oof. Politically motivated lawsuits, potentially.
That's the fear. That enforcement could be weaponized to suppress certain viewpoints depending on who's in office.
So it passed the Senate easily, I recall, but hit a wall in the House. What happened?
That's right. Sailed through the Senate 91-3, I believe, back in 2024. Huge bipartisan support for the idea of child safety. But yeah, stalled in the House. Primarily over free speech concerns. Critics argue that vague duty of care, plus mandatory age verification, it could lead to sweeping censorship of perfectly legal speech. Even content designed to help kids, like resources for LGBTQ+ youth, could get caught in the net.
And the politics behind it are revealing too, right?
Oh, absolutely. You have conservative groups like the Heritage Foundation openly supporting KOS because they say it could be used to censor transgender information. So it reveals a broader intent for some supporters that goes well beyond just traditional child protection. It becomes about controlling specific types of content they find objectionable.
It really shows how child safety can become this justification for much wider controls. What other major U.S. bills are floating around targeting online harms?
There are quite a few in the mix, each tackling a different angle, but adding to this overall tightening effect. First, you've got the CISO Act. This one's focused on empowering victims of online sexual exploitation. It allows them to sue platforms that might have promoted or facilitated the abuse, makes it easier to get CSAM child sexual abuse material taken down, strengthens reporting to the cyber tip line.
That seems pretty direct, targeting the actual horrific material.
Very direct. It advanced to the Senate by unanimous consent in May 2023, so broad agreement there. Then there's the EARN-I Act. That stands for Eliminating Abusive and Rampant Neglect of Interactive Technologies Act.
Catchy.
Isn't it? This one's significant because it would set up a national commission on preventing online child sexual exploitation. But more controversially, it aims to amend Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act.
Ah, Section 230. The liability shield for platforms.
Exactly. EARN-IT wants to narrow that protection, specifically for CSAM claims. punching holes in the shield, essentially. Versions have passed the Senate Judiciary Committee unanimously since 2020. The latest version advanced in May 2023.
Okay, and what about non-consensual explicit images? Revenge porn, basically. Is there federal action on that?
Yes, that's covered by the SHIELD Act, Stopping Harmful Image Exploitation and Limiting Distribution Act. This creates federal criminal liability for distributing intimate visual depictions, nudes, essentially without consent. It also closes gaps in existing laws to prosecute people sharing explicit images of children. That got approved by voice vote in the Senate Judiciary Committee in May 2023, too. Bipartisan push there.
Seems like a lot of modernizing old laws for the digital age.
That's a good way to put it. Then you have the Project Safe Childhood Act. This aims to update how online child exploitation crimes are investigated and prosecuted, giving prosecutors and law enforcement better tools, new tech, to rescue victims and arrest offenders faster. Passed the Senate in October 2023, but no House version yet. And finally, the Report Act. This requires electronic communication service providers, think email providers, messaging apps, to report violations involving online child exploitation to NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It also makes them preserve related data for longer, from 90 days up to a year. Increases penalties for not reporting CSAM, expands reporting to cover child sex trafficking, coercion, enticement. That passed the full Senate in December 2023. Again, no House companion bill yet.
Wow. Okay, so it is a huge, multi-pronged legislative effort in the U.S., some clearly targeting horrific crimes, others raising more complex free speech questions. What does this patchwork mean for platforms globally? The internet doesn't stop at borders.
And that is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? How do these frameworks, each with its own focus, actually interact when applied to global platforms? The ripple effects are massive. What happens in the U.S. inevitably impacts global policy decisions for these companies, and trying to navigate this incredibly complex, shifting regulatory landscape. Well, that's precisely why resources like www.compliancehub.wiki become so vital for professionals. They provide those deep insights into these cross-border compliance challenges.
Okay, so we've mapped out the U.S. landscape. But the story of digital control really gathers momentum when we look across the Atlantic. July 25, 2025 seems like a really key date globally.
It really was a watershed moment. What's fascinating is how two huge digital regulatory frameworks, the UK's Online Safety Act and the EU's Digital Services Act, both hit critical implementation phases right around that date.
At the same time, wow.
Pretty much simultaneously. It created this immediate, intense compliance scramble for global platforms, added a whole new powerful current to our perfect storm. And again, these are exactly the kinds of frameworks that our partners at www.compliancehub.wiki have been tracking super closely, because the cross-border implications are just enormous.
Let's start with the UK's Online Safety Act, the OSA. That one's generated a lot of noise, especially around age verification. What exactly happened on July 25th, 2025? What changed?
That date marked the start of the really aggressive age verification enforcement phase for the OSA. And honestly, it represents the single biggest change to how adults access a whole range of online content in the UK since the internet went mainstream.
So no more just clicking, I'm over 18.
Gone. Emphatically gone, especially for adult content sites like Pornhub. Robust, verifiable age checks are now mandatory. And the penalties for not complying, they are severe. Astronomical fines up to 18 million, that's about 20 million. Or, potentially even worse, 10% of their global annual revenue, whichever is higher.
10% of global revenue. Ouch.
Exactly. And crucially, what they call Part 5 services basically sites publishing their own pornographic content. And this now includes certain generative AI tools that can create explicit stuff they had to implement robust age checks immediately.
Okay, robust age verification. What does that actually look like? What methods has Ofcom, the UK regulator, approved? Sounds like more than just showing ID.
It's a whole suite of options, really showing how seriously they're taking it. Ofcom approves several methods. There's facial age estimation using photo or video analysis, financial verification, checking against credit card or bank data, government ID matching, comparing a photo ID against selfies, also mobile network operator checks using SIM registration data, and finally, digital identity wallets, those emerging digital credentials that hold verified proof of age. The goal is clearly to make it very hard for kids to slip through.
With rules that strict, how are the big platforms reacting? Are they all playing ball, or are some just leaving the UK market?
It's a bit of a mix, but mostly we're seeing widespread implementation efforts. Pornhub, for example, uses a third-party service called AllPass Trust now. Reddit is using Persona, often needing government ID. X, Twitter, is planning a combo of facial estimation, ID checks, maybe email-based estimation. Discord, Grindr, Hinge, they're all building systems.
But some are pulling out.
Yes. Some platforms decided the compliance burden or maybe the implications were just too much. Balesa, an adult content platform, explicitly said they couldn't comply and stay accessible. BitChute, the video site, often linked to controversial stuff, just stopped services for UK users entirely. Market exit was their answer.
This sounds huge for adult content, obviously. But does the OSA stop there? Or does it reach further into the internet?
This is where the true scope and the potential for massive overreach becomes really clear.
Yeah.
And it's deeply worrying for free speech advocates. The act goes way beyond porn. Any site that lets users share content or interact falls under the OSA.
Any site.
Like major social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, video sharing like YouTube, dating apps, online forums, messaging services, even file sharing and cloud storage. And incredibly, even platforms traditionally seen as purely educational or informational, like Wikipedia. They're explicitly in scope, too.
Wikipedia, seriously, how does an act about online safety apply to an encyclopedia? What's their reaction?
They are not happy, to put it mildly. The Wikimedia Foundation, Wikipedia's parent, is actively seeking a judicial review. They see the OSA as an existential threat. Their big fear is getting slapped with a Category 1 classification that's for platforms over 7 million UK users. That classification could force mandatory ID verification for contributors, and content moderation systems totally incompatible with Wikipedia's open, collaborative editing model.
It would break their whole system.
Completely.
Yeah.
They argue it would destroy user privacy and the very essence of their community-driven platform. In fact, they've actually threatened to block Yuki access entirely rather than comply with rules they believe would fundamentally wreck what makes Wikipedia work.
Wow, that's a serious stand. So with all these tight controls, are people in the UK finding workarounds? Like, are VPNs booming?
Absolutely booming. Technically, using a VPN to bypass age verification isn't illegal for an individual user unless the platform's terms say otherwise. The OSA itself doesn't ban personal VPN use for bypass. But Ofcom says platforms must not host or share content, encouraging VPN use to bypass checks. Creates a tricky situation. The result: a staggering 1,400% surge in UK VPN signups on July 25th, 2025, according to Proton VPN data.
1,400%?
Yeah. Clearly shows a lot of Brits are actively looking for ways to maintain their digital freedom. And for folks trying to navigate this, understanding how to use tools like VPNs effectively and legally, well, www.myprivacy.blog offers some really crucial insights and practical guidance there.
It gets even darker, though, doesn't it? Beyond content and age checks, there's talk of actual digital thought police in the UK. What on earth is that?
Yeah, this is particularly chilling. The UK Home Office has formed what they call an elite team of police officers. The official name is the National Internet Intelligence Investigations Team. Their stated job: monitor social media for anti-migrant sentiment and early signs of potential civil unrest.
Monitoring sentiment.
Exactly. Critics immediately, fiercely, called it mass surveillance and censorship of free speech. They point out this is the same agency that was enforcing COVID lockdowns, now tasked with maximizing social media intelligence, basically. Spying on what citizens think about sensitive political issues like immigration is a huge expansion of state power into public discourse.
Truly Orwellian stuff. An elite police squad reading your tweets for the wrong sentiment.
Yeah.
Is there any chance they'd go further and just ban VPNs to stop people getting around the OSA?
There are definite worrying signs. A Labour MP, Sarah Champion, has already launched campaigns against VPNs, arguing they undermine the OSA. And sources suggest there's significant support within the Labour Party to restrict VPN use. One Labour source apparently said, "We could ban the use of virtual private networks after their use has skyrocketed."
Oh, wow.
Naturally, this is fueling strong public pushback. A petition to repeal the Online Safety Act. Over 280,000 signatures already. People are warning it's far too broad, too restrictive for a free society, an attack on fundamental freedoms.
Okay, so the UK is one major front, but it's not just them. The EU's Digital Services Act, the DSA, that also hit critical stages around the same time. What's the latest there? How's it impacting things globally?
Right. Connecting the dots globally, the DSA also reached critical implementation phases, and it's definitely causing friction, especially with U.S. officials. On July 25, 2025, that same pivotal day, the U.S. House Judiciary Committee dropped a bombshell report. The title says it all. The Foreign Censorship Threat: How the European Union's Digital Services Act compels global censorship and infringes on American free speech.
Foreign censorship threat. That is strong language from a U.S. congressional committee. What were their main findings? What are they accusing the EU of?
The report laid out several major concerns about digital sovereignty and free speech. First, it concluded the DSA is forcing companies to change their global content moderation policies, not just for the EU. Non-public documents they got showed EU regulators expect platforms to change worldwide terms to meet DSA rules, even affecting posts by Americans.
So EU rules applied globally.
Exactly. Second, the report claimed the DSA is being used to target political speech, including humor and satire. Documents apparently showed European censors labeling a hypothetical post like, "We need to take back our country," pretty standard political phrase, as illegal hate speech that platforms must censor.
Wow. So the EU's definition of illegal content gets exported worldwide. That sounds exactly like the Brussels effect we saw with GDPR, didn't it? EU rules become the global default.
Precisely the Brussels effect in action. It's a powerful regulatory tool. Major platforms usually have one global set of terms. It's just easier. So the DSA effectively forces them to apply EU standards to content posted by Americans, by everyone, everywhere. GDPR set the precedent back in 2018 with data privacy. Many companies just applied GDPR rules worldwide rather than juggle regional policies. We're seeing the same playbook with the DSA and content moderation.
And what teeth does the DSA have? What are the penalties if platforms don't comply with these far-reaching rules?
The penalties are, well, designed to make them comply. They're huge. Platforms can face fines up to 6% of their global annual turnover.
6%? For big tech, that's billions.
Billions. And with vague terms like systemic risks, poorly defined, platforms are left guessing what might trigger a breach. This uncertainty forces them to be overly cautious, often leading to broad censorship, taking down content just to avoid being the first test case. Nobody wants that regulatory spotlight.
Has the EU actually started enforcing this yet? Are there active cases against platforms?
Yes, quite a few, and they seem to be ramping up. Back in December 2023, the Commission started formal infringement proceedings against X, Twitter, looking into things like data access for researchers. By July 2024, they issued preliminary findings saying X was in breach on things like dark patterns, ad transparency, data access, and there are ongoing proceedings against TikTok, AliExpress, Meta, Temu. Investigations kicked off between March and October 2024. They mean business.
Beyond these big platform cases, are there other signals from the EU pointing towards even more control down the line?
Absolutely. On July 14th, 2025, the EU Commission put out guidelines, basically a blueprint for age verification across all member states. These guidelines demand highly effective age assurance for all age ranges, not just 18 plus.
All ages, so potentially verifying age to comment on a news site.
Potentially. It could apply much more broadly than just adult content. And these systems are explicitly designed to link up with the upcoming EU digital identity wallets, creating this seamless, interconnected ID and access system.
Wow.
Plus, we're hearing more reports of search engines defaulting to safe mode in some places. Users can't turn it off. UK users reporting Bing stuck on strict. Google results getting filtered without consent, impacting even educational or medical info. Safe mode, by default, is a subtle but powerful form of controlling what you see.
So it really is a global trend then, not just US, UK, EU. Are other countries putting similar digital controls in place, adding to this perfect storm?
Definitely a global pattern. We see parallels everywhere, all adding threads to this tightening digital net. Look at Ireland's Online Safety and Media Regulation Bill. Aims to protect from harmful content, but critics slam its vague definitions, fearing overreach, censorship, much like the UK and EU acts. It sets up a powerful media commission. Then there's Germany's Network Enforcement Act, NetzDG, already requires platforms to yank obviously illegal content within 24 hours, basically outsources censorship decisions to platforms. Australia's Online Safety Act gives their e-safety commissioner huge power to order content removal. And maybe most drastically, Australia passed the world's first under-16 social media ban in November 2024. Implementation set for December 2025.
A ban on under-16s using social media, nationwide. That sounds extreme. How does that even work?
It's incredibly comprehensive, and yet critics call it draconian. The law has no parental consent exception. A kid under 16 simply cannot have an account, period. Platforms face massive fines, up to AUD $50 million, if they don't comply. It applies to Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Snapchat, TikTok, X. Though interestingly, YouTube is exempt, classified as mostly educational. Critics point out it passed with minimal consultation. Key exemptions were removed last minute. They call it arbitrary, draconian, entirely out of proportion. But it clearly shows this global momentum towards stricter online content regulation. And understanding the fine print of all these different laws, well, that's exactly the kind of complex global compliance puzzle that www.compliancehub.wiki helps professionals solve.
Okay, so governments passing laws, regulators enforcing them, that's one thing. But what about when private companies, especially the ones handling the money, start deciding what's allowed online? That adds a whole different, maybe sneakier layer to this storm.
It really does. And stealthy is the right word. It's deeply unsettling because we're seeing this clear trend of payment processors, Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, acting like unelected moral guardians, effectively driving censorship by controlling the money flow. This is something our friends over at www.myprivacy.blog have been tracking closely. They highlight how this erodes digital freedom, hitting creators, businesses, users, often happening quietly outside public view.
Let's dig into that Steam and itch.io case. That seems like a really clear example of this financial censorship driven by activists leveraging payment systems. How did it start? What lit the fuse?
Right. This one blew up in the indie game world starting around April 2025. An Australian activist group, Collective Shout, co-founded by Melinda Tankard-Reist, who calls herself a pro-life feminist, targeted Steam and itch.io. They focus on a specific game, No Mercy. When they didn't get the response they wanted directly from the platforms, they changed tactics. They went straight for the payment processors, Visa, MasterCard, PayPal.
The financial choke points.
Exactly. Threaten the platform's ability to process payments, and you have immense leverage.
So what happened? What was the immediate result of that pressure campaign?
The impact was swift and, frankly, devastating for many indie developers. On July 16, 2025, Valve, the company behind Steam, quietly updated its publishing rules. The new rule prohibited content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related card networks and banks or internet network providers.
Wow, that's vague. May violate the rules. Whose rules?
Precisely. Deliberately ambiguous. It essentially handed massive power to the payment processors to dictate content without any clear public standards. The consequences were immediate and widespread. Nearly 100 adult-themed games vanished from Steam. Itch.io, the indie platform, de-indexed thousands of games from search and browse. And it wasn't just explicitly pornographic games. Critically acclaimed titles like Mouthwashing, Fear and Hunger, Consume Me, games exploring complex, mature themes through horror or other genres got caught in the dragnet.
That's a massive blow to indie creators and players, just wiped out or hidden. How did the gaming community react? Must have been huge backlash.
Oh, the backlash was instant, loud, and pretty organized. Users on the big Reddit forum, r/Steam, coordinated, contacting Visa directly, flooding them with messages as concerned customers. They pointed out Visa's massive overreach into controlling what entirely legal actions purchases customers could make.
What did Visa say?
Visa put out a statement claiming they only prohibit illegal activity, protect legal commerce, and do not make moral judgments on legal purchases.
Which users called?
A legitimate lie, widely, pointing out the obvious contradiction. This fueled a Change.org petition. Tell MasterCard, Visa, and activist groups, stop controlling what we can watch, read, or play. It shot past 77,000 signatures really fast. Huge public anger.
And Collective Shout, the group that started it, what's their deal? Did they acknowledge their role in this censorship?
Collective Shout has a history. Started in 2009 against objectification, but they've run controversial campaigns. Defended the film Cuties, which many felt sexualized kids, while attacking games like GTA V in Detroit. Become human games that often use mature themes to explore serious issues. When asked about the Steam situation, they denied calling for a total ban on all adult games, but freely admitted orchestrating the payment processor pressure campaign. Their justification: Steam did not respond to us, so they bypassed the platform. Critics jumped on the hypocrisy. These same payment processors let OnlyFans operate for years with minimal checks, despite credible reports of real abuse, but then swiftly censor fictional game content. Seems selective.
It really does sound like private companies wielding global censorship power. What are the broader implications? Industry figures must be worried.
Deeply worried. Yoko Taro, creator of the Nair games, warned powerfully that letting payment companies dictate content allows them to censor another country's free speech. He pointed out that Visa, MasterCard, PayPal are so embedded globally, if they blacklist a type of product, it becomes almost impossible to sell it or buy it legally.
And this hits marginalized groups harder, right?
It was a huge concern.
Uh-huh.
Critics worry queer content gets disproportionately flagged as explicit, even if it's PG, just for depicting LGBTQ plus themes. Leads to what's called financial deplatforming, making it incredibly hard for diverse creators to survive, let alone thrive.
So this isn't just a one-off gaming incident. Is this pattern of financial pressure more widespread? Payment processors acting as gatekeepers?
Absolutely not isolated. It's part of a quiet but alarming trend, adding this stealthy layer to our perfect storm. Payment processors have been ramping this up for years, affecting Patreon creators, hitting OnlyFans hard. We've even seen it impact niche markets, like Japanese stores selling legal adult manga like Melon Books, forced to stop accepting Visa and MasterCard for certain items. It starkly shows how these intermediaries, by controlling the money, become powerful content choke points, making it incredibly tough for perfectly legal content to exist if it falls foul of these unelected authorities. And for individuals trying to navigate this, well, www.myprivacy.blog offers really valuable insights into these subtle shifts and how to protect yourself financially and digitally.
Okay, so we have laws, regulations, financial pressures, but there's another layer, maybe even more fundamental, more pervasive, the systematic dismantling of digital privacy, of anonymity itself. This feels like the chilling final ingredient in the storm.
It absolutely is. This is where all these different threads, technology, legal frameworks converge to create what some experts are now calling an unprecedented global infrastructure for monitoring and controlling human behavior. It stops being just about what you can see or say online. It becomes about reshaping what it means to exist digitally, where every click, every interaction leaves an identifiable trace.
Let's start with this global digital ID revolution. What's the scale we're talking about? How fast is this rolling out worldwide?
The scale is truly immense, and it's accelerating rapidly. By 2024, the prediction was around 5 billion digital IDs issued globally, over half the world's population. Many governments, especially in low- and middle-income countries with centralized ID systems, they envision a single, undeniable digital identity for every single person, linking everything: welfare, services, online life.
Wow. Any major examples?
India's Aadhaar is the biggest. Over 1.38 billion people enrolled, biometric and biographical data. Reports say 95% of adults there use Aadhaar at least monthly for verification. Globally, 137 countries and currency unions, that's 98% of global GDP, are exploring digital ID systems. 11 countries have already fully launched digital currencies with ID verification built in. 87 are exploring central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, with surveillance capabilities baked in. 72 are in advanced development. This isn't sci-fi. It's happening now.
Astonishing pace. What kind of tech makes this possible? And what are the big privacy worries when you link everything to one digital ID?
The tech uses authenticated credentials, often relying heavily on advanced biometrics. Facial recognition is huge, despite known error rates, sometimes up to 30%, especially for certain groups. Also fingerprint, iris scanning, creating unique biometric templates, and even AI-powered behavioral analysis trying to identify you from how you type, move your mouse, even your voice patterns online.
Behavioral biometrics. Creepy.
Right. And the goal is cross-platform data integration, linking all your digital activity to that single verifiable ID. The privacy implications. Staggering. Without ironclad protections, these systems create vast databases ripe for abuse, risking informational privacy, autonomy, think mass data collection, sensitive facial data revealing private intimate characteristics, behavioral prediction, and the really chilling potential for seamless cross-border surveillance. Huge questions about freedom.
Building on that, let's talk CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. These sound like the ultimate financial surveillance tool, a government digital dollar, essentially. What's the idea, and how far along are they?
CBDCs are digital forms of central bank money, different from crypto. Because they're centralized, unlike physical cash, they inherently create a digital trail for every single transaction. This enables financial surveillance on a scale never before possible. In terms of progress, China's ECNY is the biggest pilot. Huge transaction volume, 7 trillion ECNY by June 2024. India's e-rupee is also growing, reached over 10 billion in circulation by March 2025. These large pilots show they're viable.
Lots happening internationally then, especially in big economies. What about the U.S.? I know there's been pushback here, a different approach.
Yes, the U.S. became a real outlier in 2025 on this. President Trump issued an executive order actually halting work on a retail CBDC, citing privacy and government overreach concerns. Congress also introduced the CBDC Anti-Surveillance State Act, explicitly because of fears a government digital currency would allow mass surveillance and control over Americans' money. So a real tension in the U.S. between efficiency claims and these deep privacy fears.
What specific surveillance capabilities do CBDCs enable that have critics so worried? How does the control work?
The capabilities are extensive and deeply concerning for privacy advocates. Real-time transaction monitoring every payment tracked, AI analyzing spending patterns for behavioral analysis, maybe even flagging undesirable spending. Critically, the potential for selective restrictions, freezing funds, restricting purchases, reversing transactions based on government rules, maybe even programming money to expire or only be spent on certain things. Ultimately, it opens the door to profound social control, potentially integrating financial data with broader social credit systems, rewarding or punishing financial behavior.
Which brings us to China's social credit system, often held up as the ultimate example of this, usually portrayed as one score for everyone. What's the reality versus the myth? How does it fit in?
The reality is more complex than the common Western myth of a single score for all 1.4 billion citizens. But it's no less concerning. As of 2024, there wasn't a widespread national score for individuals, though regional ones exist. Instead, it's more fragmented, with a huge focus on corporate applications. Over 33 million businesses in China have scores under the corporate system, affecting loans, bids, everything. And critically, it's underpinned by a massive surveillance infrastructure. Their 2024-25 plan aims to speed up a national social credit law, create seriously untrustworthy subjects lists, build a national data sharing platform as a hub for all data, explore credit rules for foreign companies, potentially share data with friendly countries.
So it's more about state control through data, especially over businesses.
Exactly. Researchers call it surveillance state capitalism, using tech to evaluate trustworthiness business and increasingly individual through mass data collection and algorithms, fostering this pervasive culture of self-censorship and conformity.
Okay, this is where things get really, frankly, unsettling and shows how fast things can change. The UK isn't just regulating content or ideas, it seems to be cracking down hard on speech itself, crossing a line.
Indeed, and this is where insights from sources like www.myprivacy.blog are really stark, highlighting what looks like an inversion of justice. The Online Safety Act went into aggressive enforcement in 2025, and we started seeing hundreds charged with online speech crimes. Critics Trump, J.D. Vance, Elon Musk openly called it Orwellian.
Speech crimes. What does that even mean in practice? And who's enforcing this? Sounds dystopian.
It does. The UK Home Office set up that elite team of police officers we mentioned, the National Internet Intelligence Investigations Team. Their explicit mission: monitor social media for anti-migrant sentiment, aiming to maximize social media intelligence. Critics say it's mass surveillance, pure and simple, monitoring public opinion on sensitive politics. A really stark, widely condemned example: the case of Lucy Connolly. A childminder, no criminal record, got 31 months in prison for a social media post expressing extreme anti-immigrant views. She deleted it in 3 hours, realized her mistake. Still, 31 months. Way beyond what many expected for a nonviolent deleted post.
31 months. For a post, that seems incredibly disproportionate, especially compared to sentences for, say, actual child harm. Critics must be making that comparison.
That is precisely the perversion of justice argument critics are making, loudly. They point to a disturbing pattern. Members of a 2013 Telford grooming gang, horrific crimes against kids, got lighter sentences than Connolly's 31 months for a post. Banaras Hussain, leader of the Rotherham rape gang, jailed 19 years for terrible crimes, released after just 9. And the judge who sentenced Connolly, Judge Melbourne Inman. He previously led a habitual child porn offender on law, 1,000 images over 10 years, 200-plus Category A walk-free in 2021, cited good character. Even BBC's Hugh Edwards got a suspended sentence for indecent images of children.
So online speech, however nasty, punished more severely than actual child abuse in some high-profile cases. Is this systemic? Or just isolated examples?
Critics argue it's becoming systemic. They point to government stats showing ethnic minorities often get harsher sentences for similar offenses overall. Yet the irony they highlight is stark. In this system some call racist, a white mother gets one of the toughest sentences ever for a tweet, while in other cases, grooming gang members, often from minority backgrounds, have walked free after minimal time for horrific crimes against white children. It raises profound, deeply uncomfortable questions about fairness, proportionality, priorities in the justice system, especially when governments crack down on expressions of public anger rather than the root causes.
This combination, digital IDs, financial tracking, thought policing, it sounds like a direct assault on digital anonymity itself. Are these measures basically killing online anonymity?
They are, effectively, systematically dismantling it. The OSA's age verification alone builds an infrastructure linking online activity to real identity, undermining anonymity fundamentally. Then add doxing, publicly dumping private info to silence people. It's evolved from prank to weapon. 11 million Americans victimized. A quarter know someone doxed. 92% take steps to protect themselves online now. It's a pervasive threat.
And it's not just trolls doing the doxing, right? Institutions are involved, or at least enabling it.
Precisely. Beyond individuals, governments and corporations are systematically chipping away at anonymity. The U.S. has weak data privacy laws, letting data brokers easily vacuum up and sell personal info. The Privacy Rights Clearinghouse lists hundreds of brokers happily handing over personal data in bulk for cheap. This data gets integrated with social media via digital ID systems. New laws claiming to fight doxing often expand surveillance too. Facial recognition is spreading everywhere, shops, airports, eroding anonymity in the physical world too. Hard to move without being tracked.
What about Russia? There were those viral stories about a massive WhatsApp and VPN ban on August 1st, 2025. True or false?
That specific claim, August 1st, 2025 total ban on WhatsApp VPNs, was false. The Russian State Duma officially shot it down, called it another absurd hoax.
Okay, so hoax. But is Russia actually cracking down digitally, just maybe not on that date?
Oh, absolutely. While that date was fake news, Russia is definitely escalating its digital crackdown, adding its own flavor to the perfect storm, just through different means and timelines.
So what are the real restrictions happening or coming in Russia regarding VPNs and WhatsApp?
On July 22, 2025, they passed a law with hefty fines up to 500,000 rubles, about $6,300, just for advertising VPNs. Makes it risky to promote bypass tools, plus personal fines for intentionally searching extremist materials via VPN. Small fines, 1,000, 5,000 rubles, but the chilling effect is real. Privacy experts doubt the official claim that ordinary users won't be affected. Seems like a slippery slope.
And WhatsApp, is it really under threat there?
The threat is genuine and significant, even without the August 1st ban. Medusa, the independent news outlet, cited sources close to Putin's admin, saying there's a 99% chance WhatsApp gets blocked eventually. A State Duma official, Gorolkin, bluntly said WhatsApp should prepare to leave the Russian market, likely to be listed as software from unfriendly countries. Putin himself set a September 1st deadline for proposals on restricting software, including communication services from those countries. The pressure is very real.
Are they pushing domestic alternatives? Trying to build their own walled garden internet?
Very much so, echoing China's strategy. They're actively promoting Max, a domestic messaging app tied into government services. It's supposed to be installed on all new devices from September 2025. A clear push toward state-sanctioned platforms. There have even been coordinated bot campaigns criticizing WhatsApp and plugging Max as the secure alternative, trying to shape public opinion. And adding to the pressure, WhatsApp and Telegram have had several mysterious short-term outages in Russia since early July, widely believed to be intentional disruptions, nudging users away from foreign apps.
And it's not just Russia directly banning things. You mentioned the UK is hitting VPN infrastructure too, a more sophisticated block.
That's right, and it's a worrying new tactic. Beyond talk of banning VPN use, UK authorities are pressuring infrastructure companies. Cloudflare, a huge content delivery network, took the unprecedented step of blocking pirate sites specifically for UK users. This is a big deal because unlike old ISP blocks that VPNs easily bypass, Cloudflare's geo-blocking happens at the CDN level. It can potentially catch users even if they're on a UK VPN server because the content itself is blocked deeper in the network. First time a major CDN has actively done UK content blocking like this. Affects about 200 domains. Sets a dangerous precedent for infrastructure-level censorship that even VPNs might struggle with.
Okay, let's pull back. We've covered legislation, finance, tech. What does it all mean? We started with child safety, but it feels like we've landed somewhere much, much broader.
It really forces you to ask, are the stated goals matching the actual outcomes? The stated goal for so much of this was protecting children from harmful content, a noble aim. But the actual result we're seeing, comprehensive adult surveillance, widespread political censorship, a huge chilling effect on creative industries, those robust age verification systems, often proven easily bypassable AI pics, even games screenshots work sometimes, while actual predators, often unaffected, just moving to darker corners.
And the goal of stopping illegal content distribution also seems to have unintended consequences.
Absolutely. While prevented that way, the actual outcome is often the suppression of perfectly legal speech, artistic expression, even vital educational content. Those vague definitions of harmful sweep up far more than intended, leading platforms to over-censor just to be safe.
And ensuring age-appropriate access.
Framed that way, yes.
Yeah.
But the actual result is building this pervasive identity verification infrastructure. It fundamentally threatens anonymity for everyone and chillingly enables unprecedented levels of authoritarian control. What started as a specific fix becomes a universal ID system.
So even the push for platform accountability, which sounds reasonable, morphs into something else.
Exactly. The stated goal of platform accountability for user safety often devolves into this alarming corporate censorship driven by unelected payment processors. As we saw, These private companies now hold immense power to dictate acceptable content based on opaque standards, activist pressure, often with no public debate or recourse. They're setting global content policy by default.
This must have huge knock-on effects, economically and socially, particularly for independent creators.
Profound effects. The creator economy is definitely under siege. Independent creators, adult content, horror games, artists, writers, they're losing payment processing overnight. Many are forced to self-censor, change their projects, or just give up, facing this new kind of geographic discrimination based on rules in one place that go global. It stifles unique voices and destroys livelihoods.
And innovation more broadly. Does this regulatory climate put a freeze on new ideas, new tech?
It absolutely creates a chilling effect, an innovation freeze in some areas, the regulatory uncertainty, the massive compliance costs. It makes it incredibly hard for startups and smaller players to compete. Innovation might shift to less regulated places, or tech development gets skewed towards compliance, not genuinely new ideas. It can lead to brain drain, the death of experimental content that pushes boundaries.
There's a massive irony in all this too, isn't there? Especially looking at the UK example. Feels deeply contradictory.
The irony is stark, yeah, and deeply troubling. Think about it. In the UK, 16-year-olds might soon get the vote, participate directly in democracy. Yet under the Online Safety Act, these same teens are deemed too immature to watch parliamentary debates on immigration online, or access certain political content labeled not safe for kids.
The people shaping the future can't access information to make informed decisions.
Exactly. It's a fundamental contradiction. Allowing democratic participation while simultaneously restricting access to the very information needed for that participation doesn't make sense.
Given this alarming convergence of control, legislative, financial, technological, what's the alternative? How do we safeguard freedoms against this digital authoritarian creep?
Well, one proposed path is a framework like an Internet Bill of Rights, something that aims to proactively safeguard fundamental digital freedoms. Its core principles would likely include freedom of expression and information, no viewpoint censorship, protected anonymity, privacy and data protection, no warrantless surveillance, explicit consent, data minimization, no encryption backdoors. Also, access and non-discrimination internet as a fundamental right, net neutrality, no platform discrimination.
So, basically applying existing human rights principles explicitly to the digital world.
Precisely. Plus principles like platform neutrality and transparency, requiring disclosure of moderation rules, fair appeals, protection from government overreach, strict limits on state power online, innovation and competition, keeping the internet open, digital due process, legal process for any restrictions, protection of vulnerable populations but through opt-in parental tools, focusing law enforcement on actual predators, not policing speech, and technological sovereignty, letting people and nations control their tech and data. It's about setting clear boundaries. And understanding these frameworks is crucial, something resources like www.compliancehub.wiki delves into deeply when looking at global privacy laws.
How would something like that actually be implemented? Is it just an ideal, or is there a practical route?
The idea is it could happen through strong federal legislation, maybe even a constitutional amendment for lasting protection. International cooperation would be key too, trade agreements respecting internet freedom, not exporting censorship tech. And importantly, such a framework can address legitimate concerns like child safety and national security. But through targeted solutions, opt-in tools, focusing police on real crimes, not mass surveillance. It demands platform accountability for illegal content without enabling broad censorship of legal speech. It's about precision, proportionality, protecting freedom while tackling real harm, not using harm as an excuse for blanket control. #outro.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today, from COPPA and COSA in the US to the huge shifts from the UK's Online Safety Act and the EU's DSA. We've looked at the startling power of payment processors and this relentless march towards digital surveillance, the death of anonymity. It's really clear, isn't it? July 2025 felt like a true watershed moment, a tightening of all the threads in this perfect storm of digital control.
The infrastructure for pervasive, truly total surveillance. It already exists. That combination, biometric ID, AI behavioral analysis, financial tracking via digital currencies, communication monitoring, it creates capabilities that authoritarian regimes of the past could only have dreamed of. This isn't theoretical anymore. It's not a distant dystopia. It's a critical moment for human autonomy itself, redefining freedom in the digital age. And that pretense of child safety, while the starting point is valid, it's so often used as cover for much broader control, affecting every adult, every creator, even basic political conversation. The question isn't if we need online safety measures we do, it's whether we let legitimate concerns get weaponized to justify this comprehensive digital control that guts our freedoms. Which raises that huge existential question for all of us, doesn't it? Will free societies consciously choose to implement this level of control built on these monitoring technologies? And will individuals resist or just accept this transformation of human life into something managed, monitored, controlled? The choices we make, governments, companies, each of us in the next few years, they will absolutely determine whether future generations inherit digital freedom or, frankly, digital servitude.
To stay on top of these critical, fast-moving developments, especially around compliance with global privacy laws and security frameworks, we strongly recommend checking out www.compliancehub.wiki, a vital professional resource. And for that practical advice on protecting your own digital life identity theft, Web3 privacy settings, definitely look at www.myprivacy.blog. Both are indispensable for navigating this complex terrain.
Just consider this. When they came for the adult games, many stayed silent. When they came for the horror games, few spoke out. When they inevitably come for your content, your opinions, your online existence, who will be left to speak then? The time for just watching is over. The moment for active choice is here.
Until next time on The Deep Dive, keep digging, keep questioning, and stay well informed.